when you get to New York, if you see this cute correspondent in the locker room, don't send her a picture of your junk. It doesn't. It's just not a good idea. They don't want to see that, and pretty sure that's a strong form of harassment.
I just want the more you know, like, banner to go across. We'll edit that in.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of What Are They Going to Say Now? Jay and Tony, as always, coming back to you. And we have a lot of NBA talk going on right now. So we may not even get to everything we want to talk about.
I feel like since we last recorded, there's been something happening every day in the league, right? Either some off-the-court stuff, stuff's going on crazy with, like, different teams, how they're performing. It's insane.
Yeah. Let's lead with, and I don't want to dwell on this for too long because it's been beaten in the ground already, frankly. There was the whole thing with JJ Redick and Kendrick Perkins on ESPN. And Perkins is like, MVP voters for the NBA are essentially racist. He said 80% of them are white. It's the actual number they retracted. It's 68% are white.
Right.
Favor the white guys, and Redick just goes off on him. Just like, what are you talking about? Like, there haven't even been that many white MVPs,
Right. Yeah, it was just a bunch of ridiculousness. And I think, JJ Redick kind of worded it right. Like, basically he appreciates, the show he was on, First Take, was the one where this all happened. Yeah. And he said he appreciates First Take. He's honored to be there, but he feels like the problem with First Take is that you get a bunch
false
of
narratives,
which is just like talking points.
They just make up narratives.
Yeah. And it all started with Kendrick Perkins really out of nowhere calling Jokic a stat padder. Like, basically he's just out there getting stats. They're number one in the West.
He's out there stat padding their wins.
Right. Like he wouldn't earn MVP if he got it. The guy is dominating. He's averaging a triple-double. The Nuggets are number one in the West, like, running away with it. I mean, if he gets it, it's not because, there's any bias or anything like that. Right. Like, he's...
What I would say in particular about Jokic is I would actually say he is, like, the least stat patty guy of the bunch by far.
Absolutely.
Like he'll have nights where he gets, like, 15 points, but 12 rebounds and 11 assists, right?
Right.
Like, he doesn't go chasing he doesn't have to get his points. He's very much the opposite. So it's the worst example ever.
Right. And what do a lot of people say about him also? He's like the best passing big man ever.
Yeah, that's already his legacy. He's maybe the best passer of all time, like Larry Bird level passing, right?
Right. So it's just a stupid argument, and basically like he made it into a race thing, which I don't feel like it is. Like, I feel like there's other guys who are doing great this year, and I wouldn't even say at this point that you could say that Jokic is by far and away. Like, if somebody else won it, okay, you know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like that's
Embiid
right.
And Tatum and
Giannis. Giannis is doing it again.
Oh yeah, Giannis.
Right. So I mean, I don't even think that's the argument. But just him basically, trying to say that it's they just want to vote for the white guy. Come on. Like,
and we had some text exchanges about this, and I was saying, if anything, it's the opposite. We've seen, stuff gets held against white guys even more, or even not even white, but let's say Steph Curry. Some of the respect, or I should say disrespect, that he has received is because he's a light-skinned brother.
There's a lot of the and nobody really talks about it, but it's there. You know what I mean? Like, if Steph was a darker guy and doing all the stuff he does, like, I think he would have gotten the respect of his peers a lot sooner than he did. Basically, he had to be so above and beyond and prove that he was.
And then even after the fact, just
he
like
still gets
and Russell Westbrook's better than Steph. It's like, are you high?
Kyrie Irving, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yes, 100%.
It's like, come on now, like, what are we talking about?
It's definitely a thing.
Yeah, it is, and like I said, it's not talking points really, because that's something that they don't want to put out. That is, that's part of the league and that happens, but it is coming from a light skinned,
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, you probably can, I mean, you're the one to speak on this in particular.
And, right, even from your own race. So, I mean,
especially, right?
Like you said, we don't want to delve too deep into it, but it's there. So, yeah, the fact that he's basically saying that, just stupidness, you know what I mean? And what I appreciated about what JJ just brings facts and just says, no, this is how Jokic is playing this year.
JJ's good. He really doesn't belong at ESPN.
He does his research. Well, and that's the thing. I think what's happening is, like, they've been bringing him on First Take, and I think he's going to get to the point where he just says, you know what, he's
getting frustrated with the nonsense.
Right. Either they ask him not to be back because he's making them look bad, like when he argues with Mad Dog, whoever that idiot is, Mad Dog Russo, or just people who won't even.
It has to be frustrating having ridiculous conversations.
Right. Right.
Here's my favorite example of the inverse. If anything, things are held against white guys. There's a famous exchange where Larry Bird back in the day, like, goes off on some team, right? And he goes, "You put the white guy on me."
Oh, I remember that quote.
Right? It's a famous thing. So this is a white guy even having that mentality in the NBA.
Right.
It's a famous.
Oh yeah,
quote,
yeah.
Right?
Yep. That's like disrespect.
He's like,
a white player on
me. Put the white guy on me? Are you kidding?
Right.
There you go.
I don't know, man. Listen, there's a lot of things where race can be brought into. You know what I mean? Like, why is this like this? Why? But that's this year's MVP, or really any MVP. I don't.
It's
feel
all
like
about stats and record and all that. And honestly, I will say the NBA is great. What I do love about the NBA is, like, it's funny. Race is a big thing in the NBA, but in terms of that kind of stuff, it's like, I feel like it's 100% not
right.
Generally, I mean, 100%'s an overstatement.
100%, yeah, right.
Yeah. But it can cut both ways. Is the point?
And
it's race neutral, as in it can cut both ways in that sense. So
and the thing is, like, that award, it just creates so many issues, because I don't think people really look at it for what it actually is. It's a regular season award for that year.
Yeah.
So we're not saying Jokic is
who's the best player in the world.
Right.
Blah, 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 blah.
Jokic is not the best player in the world. We're not.
Do you know who the best player in the world was last year? Steph Curry.
Right.
Should he have won MVP? No.
Not last year.
He missed time.
Not this year. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Other years, LeBron was the best player in the world. Should he have won some of the others MVPs? Well, maybe one or two of them. But in general, no, it's about what you're doing in the regular season. If you're coasting on defense and waiting for the playoffs, which is cool, that's fine. But, like, we're not going to be out participation MVP trophies, okay?
Right.
It's a regular season award, and what did you do during the season?
Yeah, and the thing, I mean, I know we don't want to talk too much about it, like you said, but I think the thing about the Jokic talk that's really frustrating is the guy's playing out of his mind, like one of the greatest seasons ever, because we said this even before the pod. The thing about Jokic that we said coming into this year was that he had to have just an extraordinary year, because he had won it the previous 2 years, and basically everyone was saying he can't win a third MVP. Like, it's not going to happen unless
they have to be the one seed.
The Nuggets are the one seed,
which they are.
And he's so far and away, like, destroying all the competition. You know, he'd have to average a triple double, or he's doing it. Like, he, like, all those boxes we said he had to check, he's doing that, and I feel like even more. Like, no one thought he would have that kind of year. So I think, like we said, nobody really expected that it's going to be here, but he's doing it. And if he wins it, it'll be because he's deserved, not because he's white or European.
Right. You know, it's interesting though. So let's say he wins the third one again. And by the way, it's March. We're allowed to really talk about the MVP conversation.
Okay, I was going to ask, is it cool?
I said not till March, and March is fine. March is fair game.
We're good.
It's going to be a really interesting thing if they just flame out in the playoffs again. Now, to be fair, they did lose the Warriors last year, who won the championship, right? So that's not a flame out, and it's a regular season award. But at some point, is the regular season MVP award going to be diminished and lose some of its sparkle if this sort of thing keeps happening too much?
It's interesting. Yeah, it's a good question because we have seen that a couple times, right? Someone's super dominant regular season and they lose badly in the first round. You know, it does happen. Someone actually, I forget who said it. I listened to a bunch of different things. Apologies for not quoting them on it, but they basically said like they would think it would be interesting if you voted for MVP after the first round of the playoffs. Like if it, like basically whoever does, you know, if somebody was
kind of against the spirit of the award,
I know.
Though. That's
it's
the
just,
whole
but it's just funny.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking about it, I was like, that would kind of get rid of like the guy who like just like chokes out of the first round. But
well, I mean, if you were going to do it one way or the other, you would do it at the end of the entire season, and then, but what's silly there is it's almost always just going to be Finals MVP, regular season MVP, like a match, and it's not the point. So I don't know. Yeah. Awards are kind of stupid. Like
they are, you know. And,
they're a talking point and whatever. And it's like so many years. It's like, well, there's like 5 guys who are excellent, you know, in different ways.
Right. Exactly. You know? So, but yeah, I think to sum up our argument, Kendrick Perkins is an idiot.
He's trash.
He just is saying stuff off the top of his head. I don't even really think
he makes Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless look just rational. it's
that's hard to do sometimes.
I know. It's just like what do you and I don't get it. Like, you know, for the TNT crew, you got Chuck and Shaq and Kenny. I mean, you have 2 all-time greats right there. Kenny's really good too. Kind of an underrated, like almost a role player because that's he was better than that. But who is Kendrick Perkins? Like, why the hell is he on here? It's like he gives garbage takes. He wasn't that great a player. Why? ESPN, who the hell has been running that place into the ground? Just, it used to be great. It's just like, it took a turn probably 20 years ago, 15 years ago, it got a little worse, 10. And now it's just like, it's just trash. It's trash. It's unwatchable trash most of the time. You know,
dude, I used to watch Sports Center every morning before school, man.
Me too.
You know what I mean? Like appointment viewing. Like,
well, I used to watch
good content
when I was in college.
Shows. Yeah.
When I was PTI. So Will Vaughn and Kornheiser, they're still great. And I like Jalen and Jacoby.
Yeah.
So there's some good people still there, but just
a lot of the talent is left.
What the hell? It's just
I feel like it's mostly about clicks, right? So they're going to say whatever they want to say.
Clickbait network,
and that's what guys like Kendrick Perkins do. They're just going to say something that it doesn't matter if it's true or not. It doesn't matter if it's based in fact or research or anything.
But I think that's short term. That's chasing short term views for long term. You know, I'm a big golfer, and we'll have in the men's locker room TVs on, and they'll be like on one of those shows, and someone's like, "Would you turn this shit off?" Like it's just. Yeah, it's too bad.
I agree.
Yeah.
But hey, and I really do appreciate JJ Redick for kind of
the voice of reason
going into a show like that, being like, this is garbage. And
you can tell it's wearing on him though.
Right. That's what I say. I don't think his stint there is long lived, but hey, we'll take it while we can because I appreciate it. So.
And by the way, you don't have to manufacture like NBA drama, for example. So, for example, there was that little piece where Dillon Brooks basically said like, well, I don't like Draymond and blah, blah, blah. But on top of that, he like diminished his contributions as an NBA player.
Right.
And then I was like, oh boy, Draymond's going to go off. And he went off.
He did.
Like in the clickbaity title sense, Draymond eviscerated him.
Yeah.
Like it was so brutal how badly he crushed him. It was like,
Yep.
it was like, I don't even know if fellow Memphis Grizzlies like to play with him. Like, oh shit. And that's a thing. I remember in the playoff series between the Warriors last year and Memphis, when he did that dirty play on GP2 and injured him.
Yep.
And then he got suspended, tongue in cheek, but kind of serious. A lot of Memphis fans are like, well, this does us a favor because it's going to keep him off the floor.
Right. and I think that was true, that when he didn't play against us in the playoffs after that, they actually were like better team. He wasn't out there chucking. He wasn't out there doing all his antics. That stuff gets old. Yeah. And I think Draymond kind of commented on that.
And it's just like, who the hell are you? Like, seriously, who are you? Draymond's like, I got 4 rings, 2 gold medals.
Listen, I mean,
defensive player of the year. Are
the accolades,
are you kidding me?
They're kind of stacked up a little in favor of.
I mean,
just a little bit.
And we've trashed on Dillon Brooks before because he's a clown. Like,
he's a clown. Yeah.
Like, what do you? It's just
he was even. I don't know if you saw this part of the game last night. He was doing. He was trying to instigate Draymond to get his. Because Draymond gets one more technical and he gets suspended. Yeah. Which Dillon Brooks just got suspended.
Draymond has 15. Dillon Brooks has 16.
Yeah. And I love how Draymond was just like looking at him like, dude, this isn't working. Like, you're an idiot.
Yeah, I mean, and actually, the most scathing point to me, and very accurate point to me, in Draymond's response to Dillon Brooks was, like, you're talking like a dumb fan if you're not respecting what Draymond does on the floor defensively and offensively.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be a box score watcher. Watch the game. Who's on the top of the block and putting the penetration and opening those lanes, and if you don't understand that.
Right.
I mean, Draymond's had some of the highest assist totals for a power forward wing type ever. He led the league in assists, or was very close a couple of times.
Absolutely.
So don't tell me he doesn't. He's not just a defensive guy either. And for me, that's a litmus test. If someone doesn't understand that Draymond Green is a great player,
they don't understand basketball.
Shit about basketball.
Right. You cannot like the guy.
Don't even talk to me.
I completely get not liking him.
You can 100% not like him. That's fine.
But
if you don't think he's good
too,
and you don't respect what he's done, you do not know what you're talking about. And I don't even want to talk to you about it at all because you're an idiot.
Right.
Full stop.
Take that for data.
And so do you have an NBA player, young NBA player acting like this? I don't want that guy on my team because he doesn't know shit.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So Memphis, word to the wise, ship that guy out of town. He's an idiot. Yep. Like, you don't want that if he doesn't understand and respect that.
If we're being honest, I think a lot of their fans probably do feel like that.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, like, if he's on our team, we're going to hope he does well because he's on our team. But if we had a choice, ship that guy out. But, it's champ versus chump, man. Like, what are we talking about here? 4 rings. What has Memphis done?
I like that.
I'm waiting. Waiting. Like,
Memphis has had this. I mean, we said before the season started or whatever, has a team ever done so little and talked so much? Right.
Man.
And they're getting some humble pie served up to them right now. Like,
they are.
Even their broadcaster, I don't recall his name. He actually came on the KMBR day before, because they were playing, and he goes, I think a lot of these young Memphis guys have learned that, like, if you chirp, you're going to get chirped back on.
Right.
Can
you back it up?
Yeah. That's the question. Maybe just settle down a little bit. And this is their broadcaster. He was actually very diplomatic about it. He wasn't being a homer.
Yeah. Listen. Yeah. I mean, some of the stuff, I would say is like beyond their control. Really. I mean, it's just a string of bad luck stuff. Like the Dillon Brooks is an idiot. I don't even put that in the same category.
Well, we should talk about Ja Morant.
Yeah. Well, I was going to mention too, like injuries, like Brandon Clark tearing his Achilles, that sucks.
Steven Adams was their big man presence. Yeah. So they've been sliding because of those reasons also.
Right.
And then, of course, now more Memphis, we should talk about Ja Morant.
Yeah, I guess we have to, right?
And we talked about Ja Morant last episode, I think it was.
Yeah. That was
this is
pre the
gun
video
in the club type thing. And we were like, stop trying to act all tough guy, whatever. And then he doubled down on it with like the gun in the club and the Like, what are you doing?
It's sad, man. It's sad, to be honest. Like,
Yeah. It is, because I like Ja Morant.
I do too, and I think the thing is, he has so much promise, and basically, like, it's up to him. Like, he can be the star of this league, because LeBron is almost done. Steph
Curry's
older, you know what I mean?
too. Yeah.
I mean, Giannis is
younger,
but
still older. Like,
right. But I mean, I'm talking about he could be that guy.
Yeah. And while I love Giannis, he's never going to connect to
That's just not his personality.
A certain demographic. Like, everyone can love him, but he's not going to be like the way AI connected. Like, like Ja Morant has that, but it's like you don't need to overdo the street thing because you're not.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm really hopeful that he gets the help that he needs. Like, it's not even about like, suspend him for the year. Like,
I think it's full out a mental health thing.
Right. It could be, yeah. I mean,
okay, he's 20. He's still 23 years old.
Right.
You get a $200 million contract. You have the pressure of being the shoe deal. I mean, dude, if he doesn't mess it up, he's going to be worth like $1 billion.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things to deal with. He has a kid of his own, actually. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of pressure. It's also easy to look at athletes, as we're older and going like, oh, you're in this position and whatever. Right. And it's like,
these youngins.
Like, dude, you go back to 23-year-old Jay and you give me $200, $300 million.
That'd be a problem.
Dear, I don't know what kind of dumb shit I would have done. Like, and people are way too judgmental.
Not everything's on the internet. Like when we were 23, right?
That's also true. And that's also true of like young NBA players when they were 23, in prior generations.
Imagine some of Jordan stuff being,
dude, I would have probably done some embarrassing stuff.
Right.
I don't know if I'd be waving a gun in a club, but I would have done some very regrettable things. I know I would have, and most people would have. And anyone who says otherwise is either kind of a boring person or a liar.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's only so many Steph Currys of the world who I feel like are, from day one, he was just kind of that straight edge. Like, that's just his MO. You know what I mean?
Well, Steph Curry also grew up with a NBA player father and that. So like the whole thing wasn't a scene to him. It was just what it was.
He knew what it was to be professional in the league way before he was professional in the league.
And there's no like needing to flaunt in that way. I don't even know if flaunt is the correct term, but just like, oh, that was just his life and his regular thing and he grew up with. So there's no, it's not like the head trip that it is for your average individual getting into that kind of wealth and fame. And I mean, people, it's funny. You talk about Hollywood, you think about like Justin Bieber or someone like these NBA players. They're not quite, there's some of them they're child stars. I mean, they are. I mean, they're a little older.
That's interesting. No, I like the comparison though.
They really are.
And
some of the child stars are usually, it's like Corey Haim of, And I mean, those guys were, the Coreys, right? Classic child.
Feldman.
That was in their late teens, so a little younger, but it was also in their early 20s.
We're dating ourselves there. Yeah.
Oh, but that's a good reference.
It is.
So I mean, a lot of these NBA players, all that thrown onto them, and by the way, the money is astronomically more.
Right.
And we're not talking inflation; we're just talking straight up way more, scale wise or whatever. Ton of money. They're child stars, some of them. And I don't mean that to sound condescending, like calling
no.
But no. I am in my early 40s now, so I can call someone in their early 20s a kid.
They are literally, they are literally stars from the time they're teenagers, right? Because
that's the other part. They're in AAU. They're in AAU, and they're hot shit
gifts
at 14, 15 years old. So they are child stars.
Right.
That's a good point. They're. I mean,
that's why I was like, the comparison is actually pretty good.
Before they get the bag, they know the bag is coming.
Right.
Yep. And just knowing the bag is coming is a head trip.
Yeah. I think for me, I was just gonna, something came into my head while you were talking. I just think, and other people have said this too, but I think the company that he's keeping is just like his circle that of people around him, if that kind of stuff is allowed to happen, like your boys, like put that on IG. You know, somebody doesn't pull him over and be like, "Yo, like chill out. Like you have too much to lose." You got to have that guy in your corner, not these guys who are just out for the.
He needs a good friend. You know,
or a good circle.
Well, people are giving like T Morant, whatever. It's like, well, he raised
he's a grown man.
Yeah, like that's not. He doesn't need his dad to do it. He's in his 20s. Like,
I don't like. He
needs a good friend who has his best interest in mind and none of that nonsense. You know what I mean?
I would say a good circle.
Literally, if I was a young NBA player, I would hope I have the presence of mind for this. I'm a little short for that, but and,
I am too.
And Larry Bird would say I'm a little white for that, but I'd be like, bro, you're gonna run my social media Instagram. I'm not even gonna do it. And if I want to ask you to put something on there, cool. But like, then you have like a built-in filter. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is what a lot of like Hollywood people do and whatever is they don't run any of their own stuff. So if they do want something on there, it has to get filtered through their people, and it's very smart.
Yeah. Listen, I mean,
you don't have a couple drinks at the club and make a bad decision.
Yeah.
You know, and again, thank God when we were younger, we didn't have the social media.
Yeah. No,
I would have embarrassed the hell out of myself.
We would have gotten in trouble for it. Right. Yeah. No, I just feel like I think this is going to be a situation that it's true. It's like a crossroads, right? It can either go.
It is a crossroads. It feels big.
He can turn it around and say, you know what? Like I got to cut this stuff out, man. There's too much at stake. There's way too much at stake here. Like the upside of what I could actually lose. Like if he has another incident like this again, the league could be forced to
we get to Nike. Him. Well, we also get into like Nike and all
he
that.
Loses that. And, I mean,
he needs someone like this guy's. I've never met him, known him, but he's kind of known in NBA circles. Is it Worldwide Wes? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think he works for the Knicks now, right?
But he's been known just as like a young advisor to players, and I think
there's a lot of people.
He had a famous line. I think it was on a Bill Simmons podcast or something where he goes, "Don't go chasing the night. Nothing good happens after midnight or whatever, you know."
I like that
kind of thing. And I just feel like Morant needs somebody like that in his life. So, and I hope so. I mean, he actually seems like a really good guy. I'm a fan. Like,
I feel like
we talk shit about Memphis as Warriors fans, but I like him.
I do too. I feel like he's going to take the time he needs to get it right. And I feel like he is going to make that turn for the better. I'm hoping. Because like I said, he literally could run this league in a few years.
Yeah.
So to mess that up would be a huge
but people
mistake.
have very little compassion for how young and what the situation these players are
That's
being put
true.
into
That's
and
true.
social media and all
That's
that.
true.
Like it's a lot. It's a
Absolutely.
lot. So and then he has a kid too, which we both have kids and we know sometimes you do that and there's extra stress in your life from it, and just on top of it, that's all that pressure between what he has, that's a cocktail of potential madness, you know?
Right. Yep. So yeah, man, it's like we said, we're both fans of his and we hope he turns it around. So what else is going on NBA wise? There's a lot of injury stuff, right?
Oh man, KD doesn't even get the start for Phoenix. Slips warming up and hurts.
He played a couple games.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, he did. Okay, I don't know. I was thinking
his first game was.
That's right.
His first game was the 1st of March because there was a big.
He played a couple games.
Social media thing on that. Yeah, played great. They looked great. I think
you're right. I was blanking out there.
That's no problem. But yeah, he just a freak. I mean, warm-ups.
He slipped.
You never think anything's going to happen in warm-ups. I guess there was a wet spot. Who knows what happened? But yeah, slipped down, and then the way he fell, he wasn't able to brace himself.
It looked really. The video looked really awkward.
It's
like, oh, so now he might be out for the season, but then back for the playoffs.
Right. Well, reevaluated. At
maybe
the start of the playoffs.
4 to 6 weeks, and then all of a sudden the playoffs.
That's worrisome.
Phoenix doesn't necessarily need him in the first round either. I mean, that's a strong team with Booker but still,
it is. But they're thin.
That's true, especially after the trade. Right.
So if Booker sits, and Chris Paul is kind of up there in age and stuff, like I could see them having a a tough first round if he's out.
Right.
You know,
that's true.
tougher than they want it. Where
tougher
with KD, they probably sweep.
You go to like 6 or 7 games or something, and who knows what the matchup will be?
Anything can happen.
It might be against the Warriors.
Oh, don't say that. I mean, you might be right, but don't say that, please.
It could be like a 4 or 5 seed situation.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Oh, the NBA would want that too. So.
Oh, they would. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. And then, what was crazy is I think I told you about this yesterday. I mean, of course, we're paying attention to the Warriors games, but Jonathan Kuminga got hurt in a similar way before the Warriors game. He went down in warm-ups. I was like, what is happening?
Dude, there's an epidemic of wet spots.
What is going on? Come on, ball boys. Like, aren't they the ones who go out there and wipe the floors down? Like, what are we doing?
I mean,
Memphis, maybe they did it on purpose. I don't know.
Warriors have a history of wet spot issues, like Curry in Houston, and
to this day, like, I worry about that with Steph because of how he went down against Houston. That was he's had the most freak injuries I feel like of anyone.
Are you saying it was intentional? Or are we going conspiracy theory, Tony? No,
I mean, it was mid game. I don't know how that one's intentional.
I'm just joking.
But like, remember when he wasn't it also in Houston where he fell on his butt into the bleachers? It was like during the pandemic. He fell and broke his butt.
Because we were like Houston again. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
He has the weirdest stuff like that.
Well, I mean, in different arenas, the ones that have ice underneath the floor, which I don't even know if is the case in Houston. I have no idea. I don't think so.
No, but
I don't think it is. But that's a whole weird thing. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but just some. I hate injuries. I mean, like we were just saying with
you know what? Houston doesn't have a hockey team. Dallas does.
Right. Okay. Got you. So the Mavericks. Next time we see something like that happen, the Mavericks will be like, The
Dallas Stars might have their own separate arena. I'm actually not sure. So totally talking out of my ass here, but that's what we do on podcasts.
But we just we hate to see injuries. So hopefully everyone's good to go at least sometime in the first round. You would hope that we get to see these teams at full strength, right? Yeah. Against each other. Trying to think if there's anything else.
I have another NBA topic for you.
Okay.
Fred VanVleet of the Toronto Raptors goes off talking about the refs, and he goes, I'm going to take the fine and do this. And he goes fully off.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it. I understand why the league fines players for talking about the refs because
I do too.
You don't want that to be the focus. However, the reason we don't want to be the focus is we don't want to be the refs to be the focus. When the refs make themselves the focus, that sucks.
Yeah.
And that's what he's talking about.
We've seen it a lot.
He said, most of the refs are fine, but there's clearly guys out here who make it about themselves and blah, 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 right? And he goes off on it. And I was like, fuck yeah, exactly.
It needs to be said sometimes.
Yeah. So you're finding players for, talking about refs because you don't want the focus to be the refs. But then it's then rein these refs in who are making it about the refs.
Right. That's the problem. And it's felt like this year for some reason. I mean, there's always some chirping about refs with fan bases, right? Because it's, they're kind of like.
Well, you're not allowed to play defense.
They shouldn't take over a game.
This year more than any, look at the average offensive efficiency. I'm sorry, I know there's a lot of talent in the league, but no, you're not allowed to play defense is the problem.
Right. Yeah, and he mentioned not just that game, but I think there was some build-up also because they had a game against Denver. I believe it was 2 nights before, or maybe the night before.
Yeah,
and the end of that game, I don't know if you saw that, Jay.
I saw the highlights, and it was like, what's going on?
Like literally 9 calls in a row. I feel like went Denver's way. It was in Denver, which
it was. It was. I was like, I saw the highlights, and it was like, what is going on? Jesus.
Right. So I mean,
and that sucks. Like, there's
you don't want to be talking about the refs.
And I mean, let's be honest. The NBA never really cleaned their house.
No,
they never did.
You're talking about back in the day when they had the
Donahue.
Yep.
I mean. And actually, everything I'm talking about, I haven't followed that, but it's like, why is Scott Foster in the league still?
That's a good one.
Donahue's best friend text messages. I don't even want to go down the whole rabbit hole, but it's just, the NBA has a serious officiating problem. It's so inconsistent, and I should actually preface that by saying officiating basketball is by far the most difficult.
It's very hard.
By far. There's so much going on. A lot of the rules are very gray area. Charging versus a block, like very gray area. So it's a really hard job. But when you have clear cases where officials are just kind of like just out of hand, like what are you doing? Like take it easy, Yeah,
it shouldn't be about them, right?
Yeah. And behind the scenes, there are players who have said there's talk of it, like they don't do it publicly. Like there's certain refs where a lot of players are like, this guy should not be reffing NBA games at all.
Right. Yeah, so that definitely should not be happening. I hope that there's at least, if anything comes out of that, like, yeah, he got a fine and this and that, but I think a lot of people kind of agreed with him and, were on his side. So maybe the league will take a look at that.
It got reposted on Twitter or whatever, and like there's like a flood of NBA players who liked the tweet.
Yeah, right. I'm sure they feel the same way. Like there's got to be certain refs that players see and they're like, oh god, it's gonna be one of those nights because I have to deal with this guy.
Well, and I mean, the odds get adjusted on games based when the officials are announced. That's a thing. I like to do a little betting here and there. That's been on my radar. That's a real thing.
That's a real thing. Absolutely.
Scott Foster, I mentioned, let's say we're in the playoff series and one team's up, 3-1, right? And you're like, oh, Scott Foster's coming in. The extender.
And what usually happens?
Yeah.
That series gets extended out.
Yeah, and it's really, the data backs up, like with trends, it's extremely fishy.
Yeah.
It really is.
I understand.
Tony Brothers.
Right. He's another one. Oh, from back in the day. Yeah. With the Warriors. He's So I don't know. I feel like you said, like, I think that they have some of these guys in the league because they are good refs. The ability to ref. We're not saying that they can't referee. I think what we're saying is that right. But I think what we're saying is that there's some like biases and some, maybe some like where it becomes personal. That's where the issue comes in. Where that can affect games or series and can affect money, betting. That like it becomes really, really fishy. So,
I actually don't think the NBA ever rigs a game, like a series, like in the playoffs, to go to one team or the other.
Right.
Do I think that the NBA will put in refs with certain reputations to extend a series, and then there's more games on TV, and that's more revenue and more money and the whole thing? 100%, I think that. 100%.
Yep.
And it's not like, if you said that about the NFL or whatever, well, the NFL doesn't have series, but like if you said about the NFL, I'd say, no, they're a juggernaut. Right. And people forget that the NBA is, I mean, we've talked about this before. In the 70s, early 80s, the NBA Finals was on tape delay on TV. Okay. So we're not talking about the same thing. The NFL is like, whatever. Like they're the NFL.
Yeah.
The NBA is still like relatively young in that sense in terms of national audience. So if you're going to tell me, oh, there was definitely a push to extend series to make them longer and more interesting, I would say that checks out.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of evidence of it.
Oh, yeah.
A ton. So,
but I think we both, like you said, I really liked hearing him say that because I just like, a player knows you're going to take the fine, right? Because you're talking about a ref.
Yeah.
Talk about the ref.
I'll take the fine and
go
all
out. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if I've ever seen that. Someone being so blatant, calling out a specific ref by name.
Yeah.
And like being like, that guy was shit tonight. Like,
it was pretty gangster, actually.
Like, I was just kind of stunned. I was like, oh, man. Like, hey, if you're taking the fine anyways, call him out.
Yeah.
And then, you know what? I think they went, he actually talked about how his last games officiated by him were like the only technicals he's ever gotten. Like it was blatant. Like there's history. So I think that's a kind of thing where the league could look back and be like, you know what? He's actually right. Like it's personal.
They won't. They will never admit it, but yeah.
I mean, yeah, they probably won't. You're right. I would hope that at least like if everybody's putting a spotlight on it, at least it's a conversation.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's interesting.
Moving on to NFL news, kind of the big story of late. We're about to go into full free agency this weekend, but is that Baltimore did the non-exclusive franchise tag on Lamar Jackson. Pretty interesting dynamics. They supposedly offered him, or confirmed, I don't even supposed, a $250 million contract before last season,
right,
matching Deshaun Watson, but only 180 of it was guaranteed, which is still massive. Like before the Deshaun Watson thing that happened, that would have been the biggest guarantee in NFL history. And so Lamar does not have an agent.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. I didn't realize that.
And I'm pretty sure an agent would say, "Dude, just take that money." This is like the second biggest guarantee in NFL history.
Yeah.
And like, well, Deshaun, I'm better than Deshaun Watson. I won an MVP, right? It's like, well, Deshaun Watson was dealing with the Browns, and the Browns are going to brown, and they were desperate. They were desperate. You got to let that ego go. He should have just taken that deal. And then he gets hurt, and he doesn't play in the playoffs again. He's been hurt twice now, I believe, in the playoffs. And so now they non-exclusive franchise tag him. And I mean, you first of all, you don't want your team leader on a franchise tag. I mean, there's a reason it almost never happens with quarterbacks, right?
Right.
It's a kind of a wild situation. So, oh man, he might cost himself. I mean, he's really rolling the dice here by not taking that long-term guaranteed money, right? Trying to hold out for a bigger contract. It's like an ego thing, you know? Kind of unprecedented.
Do you see him staying? Do you see him staying with the Ravens? Do you think that's something that
well, so how it works is another team now may offer him a deal, and then Baltimore can match it. That's why it's a non-exclusive
so they can match any deal.
Tag.
Got you.
Yeah, and if no one offers him a deal that he wants to accept, then it goes to that franchise tag per year level for like 1 year, or maybe it's 2 now. They kind of changed it, right? But here's a more interesting question. I mean, first of all, that's kind of nutty going down like that.
Yeah, it is.
And it's bad for both sides. It's going to be like, well, we got done, and then I still feel like it's going to be bad blood. But here's the thing.
Right.
I know Lamar Jackson won an MVP. He was really phenomenal that season. Since then, the strategy has clearly been, let's keep Lamar in the pocket and make him beat us with his arm. And he's a decent thrower of the football. But is he good enough to be the highest paid quarterback in the league thrower of the football?
Right.
I don't think he is.
Right. If the running isn't an aspect to his game, right?
Yeah. So I understand. And then he gets hurt. So I understand why Baltimore doesn't necessarily just want to like lay it all out there. Here you go.
Yeah,
like I totally get it. They're stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's kind of interesting. And I mean, talk about, this is like an all-time game of chicken. I don't think I've ever, right? I don't think I've ever seen it to that level for someone who won an MVP. And I'm sure he's like, well, I won an MVP. It was unanimous. I should just get the money. Vote. But it's like, well, sure, that's true. But is that sustainable? You know.
Yeah, I can't predict where that goes, man. To be honest, like it's just so up in the air. I don't feel like it's good, like you said, for either side.
No, I don't think it's going to end well for either of them.
No. And if they do make a deal, you're right. All of this just adds bad blood, and I feel like there's just going to be a divorce at some point. It's just
Right.
a matter of when and how much they're able to, achieve together before that happens. So
Right. And then there's rumors of the 49ers trying to trade for Lamar because apparently the 49ers are trying to trade for every single quarterback that's ever played the game. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And like that they're going to re-sign Bosa and some of their young other players.
How are they
it doesn't
gonna do
make
that?
any sense. They're entirely structured around the younger quarterback contract on the timeline. And now they have two of them with Purdy got his surgery done yesterday.
Yeah, successful. Not
Tommy John.
Thank God.
It was the regular surgery, and he can be throwing the ball in 3 months.
Awesome.
So they have Trey Lance and Brock Purdy. Why would they be interested in trying to trade away assets and try and make all that cap room for Lamar Jackson? It makes no sense whatsoever. I do not understand it.
Yeah, I mean, I think basically you have a bunch of what do they call them? Monday morning quarterbacks who, you know what I mean, who are just like, oh, trade this guy. They don't even put salary cap or anything. I know
that's always the thing. It's
legit,
like, so you're like, who are we getting rid of to bring this guy in?
They don't want to think about that. It's just, they need a quarterback, or they're, quarterback's the weak link on their team. Give them X quarterback. It's like, that's not how it works.
People who have conversations about player transactions without any basic comprehension of the salary cap, it kills me. It's just like, just stop talking. Just stop talking.
The Kendrick Perkins of the world.
Kendrick Perkins of the world. Exactly.
For a callback.
Yeah. Now the other big rumor is that coming up this weekend, the tampering restrictions, the conversations are open up for free agency, for unrestricted free agents, but also trade talks and things like that. And everyone's saying Aaron Rodgers will be a New York Jet.
I did hear something about that.
That one I believe.
Wild. Wild.
I believe that. Because that Jets team
they were pretty good.
And
you give them a good
Robert Saleh, we're both fans of, former defensive coordinator for the 49ers. And they just need a quarterback.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder what the terms would be, right? Because how old is Rodgers now? He's got to be
39.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's already not quite our age.
He's almost our age.
Yeah,
he might be turning 40. I don't know. I mean, but he was still good. But
so what would they give him, a max 2 years contract? I would think you. Yeah. I wouldn't.
Well, it's a trade. It's a trade. He has a contract.
Oh, a straight trade. So he'd be honest. Okay.
Yeah. It's already he has 1 year and like 40 million left on his deal or whatever.
So it's a win now. Just kind of like let's kick the tires and.
Yeah, and the Jets have been desperate just to get that quarterback because they think they have a really good team otherwise, and I think they do. So we'll see.
And he's out of Green Bay, right? Like there's.
I mean, no, he's under contract.
Right. Okay.
But I mean, it seems like we're at the crossroads, right?
Right. That's what I'm basically saying. Is like You couldn't see him lining up for Green Bay next year.
I still could.
If nothing else works out.
That's a lot of money. To just walk away.
It's a lot of money.
Like one more year, let's do it.
Oh, he's not walking away. Yeah. I'm just thinking of a likelihood. Yeah. So interesting. Okay. I'd like to see him in New York. I'd go see a Jets game. That'd be fun.
It'd be really interesting to have Rodgers follow the footsteps of Brett Favre from Green Bay to New York.
That's right.
Maybe he'll end up in Minnesota after that. Same.
I'll say it didn't work out too well for Favre towards.
It didn't work out too well. No. So yeah, like if Aaron Rodgers is listening to this, which he definitely is not, when you get to New York, when you get to New York, if you see this cute correspondent in the locker room, don't send her a picture of your junk. It doesn't. It's just not a good idea. They don't want to see that, and pretty sure that's a strong form of harassment.
I just want the more you know, like, banner to go across. We'll edit that in.
I'm still at a loss for why any guys ever do that. No one wants to see that ever.
Well, he's made a lot of questionable things later in life. You know what I mean? Like, like Favre, what are you doing, brother? Just he's a wild guy. He always was a gunslinger, wasn't he? Jay, he always was a gunslinger, man.
I had someone explain this to me once, a woman recently, and she goes, "So you're a straight man. Would you want to see a picture of another man's junk?" And I go, "Well, obviously not." Mm-hmm. She goes, "Feel almost exactly the same way."
On that note,
and I was like, "That's fair."
Oh man,
I just had to bring us in strong here at the finish.
I know. I was gonna say, yeah. I don't know if there's anything left to say after that.
You're like lost for words.
Yeah, that's wow. The true words are spoken.
Okay, well, anyway, we should probably wrap this up. Glad we were able to squeeze this one in here between. You made it through with a sore throat and me being an insomniac zombie, not being able to sleep. But
we pulled it out.
We pulled it out. So we'll be back next week at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think so.
Yeah. Subscribe.
I'm sure we're gonna have plenty to talk about with NFL stuff. So
hit us up. Let us know what you think. Subscribe.
Please subscribe. Tell us in the comments what you think about dick pics and
hit us up. Instagram, anywhere. We're on all the platforms. So check us out.
Thanks for listening.
Peace.